Yes, Queen.
Long live the Queen.
Britain woke this morning without its queen of 70 years, the beginning of a new era.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick Davenport here, aka Mr. Mental Muscle, with another episode of the Mental Breakdown channel. This is a breakdown episode in light of recent news with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Now, the whole world is mourning, and regardless if you were a British subject in the UK or one of the Commonwealth countries, or you were indifferent or you hated her, the goal of this topic is to talk about where does queenhood and queendom carry over into modern times. As a young man in the dating world, I've actually noticed there's a mentality of being treated like a queen. Now, I get the gist of what it means of being polite, chivalrous, be able to maintain, provide, secure, all that good stuff. I get that. But I think it's kind of manifested to some extent to this entitlement maybe. But I want to look at how we can explain this, as always, on the Mental Breakdown channel through science and psychology. Now let's get into it. So Queen Elizabeth II ruled from 1952 to just yesterday, which was September 8th, 2022. Her reign, 70 years, was the longest of any monarch of modern times. And a lot of people, like I said, are mourning her loss. But like I said, the point of this video is to take that concept of her being queen. She's probably the most prominent queen in modern times, as monarchs have kind of dissipated. If they're still there, they're more of a figurehead. But she did have an impact on the world, and not just the UK, but also the Commonwealth and countries outside, even us. It's interesting to think even that we gained independence in 1776, July 4th. That's why we celebrate, if you didn't know. Let's put that out there. And a lot of people are talking about it, but what makes this so monumental other than her being the queen that we're so tuned in? And let's lead up to how this could be even a precedent for the queen culture. So when you think about it, just in psychology, there's something called parasocial behavior. When you think about the word para, it's usually a subset of a bigger field like paramilitary or Paralympic. So parasocial means adjacent to regular social interactions. A typical social interaction would involve me and another person talking or texting or calling, some kind of form of communication that I actually know them in real life, and they have some kind of impact on my life and my inner circle. Now, when we say parasocial, these are people, relationships we form when it's only one-sided. We have never met the Queen of England. We have never met celebrities, whatever it may be, the president, whoever. But we form these kind of relationships in our head, not in a way of anything out of the ordinary, but more so we understand them because we can relate to their policies or their philosophies or what they believe in. So we're able to identify, and it makes us feel closer despite the fact they have no idea who we are and we've never actually met them. So we can look at this even in sports, right? A lot of people have a favorite football team, soccer team, whatever it may be. They don't really represent them, but they'll say, that's my team. Or even with reality TV, you look at this, we get close to these people, we see their actual lives, and we think that, oh, I know them, I understand that, and they're still living more grandiose than the average person. But we really make these ties, and it makes us more in tune, because as humans, we want to belong. We're wired for socialization. So this gives us a way to look into the lives of not just another person, but someone who's living maybe how we want to live, or has the things that we want to have, or the goals that we want to achieve. Not necessarily just envying them or being jealous. That could happen. For the most part, it's something to look forward to, whether you're going to achieve it or not. It gives you that feeling that it can happen, and it makes you feel better. But this brings me back to the first question. Why is being a queen the goal? Because when you think about queen, what does that really mean? A queen is a title. It's more so about what you do in life, right? Because even if you are a queen, there's a lot of things that come with that. Like the great movie Spider-Man, they said,
with great power comes great responsibility.
So it's not just about the fancy things, being treated like a star, being catered to. This is definitely an upside, but what about the things that come with it? Also, when we think about queens throughout history, what do we really know? We typically think about the most prominent queens, but we're going to talk about the ones that may have slipped through the cracks in the history books, or if they didn't, they're not really known for the best of things. They're more infamous than anything. Let's talk about a few different queens that aren't so well remembered. So there was a kingdom in what we now know as modern day Spain called the Kingdom of Castile. And she was named Juana la Loca, which translates into Juana the Mad. And the reason for this is she was thought to have several mental disorders. One of the weirdest things she's known for is when her husband died, she kept the body, kissed it, caressed it, and acted as if it was still her lover, even though he was deceased. This is not quite the common activity, what we think of as queen status, right? But this was a thing that really did happen, and she's known for this. You can see back then, mental disorders were definitely not something we took into consideration. They thought they were just out of their mind or crazy, But if you weren't royalty, something like that would get you committed to an asylum or even killed. But since she was royalty, she got a little better treatment, of course. Another two monarchs on this list I'll list together because of what they did was Queen Isabella of Spain and also Queen Mary of England, also known as Bloody Mary. So the reason I put these two together is because they're both known for persecuting religious practitioners that weren't Catholic. So if you're a Protestant, Jewish, Muslim, you may be subject to extreme harsh torture or even death. So these two, once again, this is a queen. This is what they're doing. They're treating their subjects because of some belief they may have badly. And this is a side of queendom we don't really talk about. Now, the last one I'll talk about on the bad side of queens is Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette was the Queen of France right before the French Revolution. Some may argue that her role in the collapse of the French and her excessive spending, lavish lifestyle may have been exacerbated a little, but she was known to be flashy, prominent parties, things that were going on when France was on the decline financially, and that's why the revolution was able to happen, because they wanted change. So you can see these different types of queens, they had the status, they had the title, they had the look, they had everything that came with it. People catering to them, allegedly people loving them, but that's the funny thing about it. Just like in real life, you may think that people love you, but they just might not. And they may even hate you if you go to the extent of not considering what they're going through. So that's why a lot of these queens on this side of the fence didn't fare too well. And in Marie Antoinette's case, it was off with her head. Now, on the other side of the fence, the queens that are more notable and remembered for great things are queens such as Cleopatra and Hatshepsut, two different queens of Egypt, also known as pharaohs, but they were female, but they're still queens. And they were known to be able to build armies for Egypt, build monuments, structure. Now, throughout history, some of Cleopatra's and Hatshepsut's accomplishments or achievements may have been lost in transition due to many reasons, but they did accomplish a lot during their reign. Now there's Queen Elizabeth I, whose sister, Mary, Queen of Scots, or Bloody Mary, who's on the other side of this list. She was Mary's successor, and she was queen during the Golden Age, and many great things happened. We talk about the Great Awakening, we talk about the Renaissance. This is the reign, and this is where a lot of great accomplishments in math, science, culture, literature, we talk about Shakespeare. This is that time period. So you can see how her reign helped contribute to a lot of things that go on to this day and influence the rest of the world. Now, the last one I'll talk about is a Russian queen, Catherine the Great, and her story is interesting because she didn't start off as royalty. She was penniless, and she married the Tsar, Peter, and then she was able to strategically take over, and she helped expand Russia's borders. And you can see the powerhouse Russia ended up becoming throughout the years, and a lot of that still is in effect today. Now, speaking on that term, I've seen a lot of backlash to Queen Elizabeth II because, you know, given the history of the world, England used to own everything. There used to be a saying, the sun never sets on the British flag. And that was very true because they owned so much territory that they took over through colonization that no matter where you were in the world, some part of it would have a flag up for Britain and it would never go down. And that's kind of what's happening today in other ways, but we won't get into that. But you can understand why some cultures who are on the other side of that colonization may be indifferent or even mad about Queen Elizabeth and not care about, you know, her dying. But the thing is, when you think about the history, once again, her family wasn't the royal family back then, but it does transition from power to power. And while she was in office, they did still own a lot of these territories, and some are still even in the Commonwealth today. And the funny thing about even with Queen Elizabeth is she probably wasn't going to be queen, but her father's brother abdicated the throne to marry a Hollywood actress, and this put her in line directly. So it doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, but the direct succession wasn't really on her until that happened. But you can argue that when she took over, she took the role, the world was changing. She became queen in a very big time in Earth's history where all types of technology, wars, different things that made the world a lot bigger, but a lot smaller at the same time. So this is not about commending her, knocking her. It's just to understand being a queen comes with more than just being treated great and getting what you want. Are you one of these queens that were changing the empire, making it better, or were you taking away from your subjects? These are things to think about. Now, going back to my first thought in the modern dating world, there's nothing wrong with that. Get your standard, because I made many videos that you guys have seen on dating today based off the science and psychology. This goes hand in hand with it, but all we ask is if that's your standard. So make sure you uphold your duty. You don't end up like Marie Antoinette, obviously metaphorically, off with your head, because you wouldn't want to live in a world where you're celebrated in public but hated in private. So take that in consideration. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This was a quick cover because such a recent event happened. So tell me what you think. You want to see any more historical type breakdowns? Because psychology is my thing by trade, but I love history in general. So let me know in the comments below if you like this format and I can get more into the historical side with the psychological breakdowns and science. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, get your mind right.